Good evening, rock fans. This is Brad.
I'm Amy.
It's Mikey B.
This is Peoples.
All right, and we are joined by Michael Thomas. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. What's up, guys? Good to see you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Join us. This is our first show of 2022, so
wow,
you could
first
join
one?
us. Yeah,
I feel honored. Thank you.
yeah, we got to take the holidays off, and then Mikey does a little business travel in January. So first crack at it. Yeah, awesome. We call it business trip here to Vegas. So.
Yeah, it's very loose on the business.
Hey, don't tell on me.
Who doesn't already know that?
Right. So, Michael, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about what you got going on. I know the new song dropped tail end of January, and with What's on Your Mind, Pure Energy. What else you got going on right now?
Well, that's kind of been the focus of the new year. So usually around, December, January, they're kind of slow months for touring. So guys, you probably know that I've been out working with Steven Adler of Guns N' Roses for a number of years now. So usually December, January is a good time to, work on music that I haven't got a chance to kind of dive into in a while. And I really kind of focused my attention on some new material that I've been working on. As you mentioned, I just released a new single for a cover of Information Society's What's on Your Mind, which was a song that, I loved ever since I was a kid. And I just thought it'd be such a cool song to kind of reimagine, Yeah. So I ended up going in the studio, laying down that track. And really my focus was for the first of the new year to get some music out, because it had been a while for me. I was so kind of wrapped up in, working with other artists. Sometimes you don't get the opportunity to kind of focus on your own stuff and get back into that process of creating music and having that outlet. So basically that's my focus for the first of the year. Along with that single, I released a lyric video. And what was really cool about the whole process was I ended up creating the lyric video. So it was another cool outlet artistically to kind of dive in and really kind of paint this whole picture of what I saw in my head for the song, So that's really kind of kept me busy the past month. And now I'm kind of gearing up for more shows with Steven. We're getting ready to go out and play again. Okay. So the next show is coming up March 25th at the Choctaw Casino.
Awesome.
So we'll be playing there with Vince Neil of Motley Crue, which is a super awesome night of music, right? So you've got Vince, who does so many of the Motley Crue hits, all the timeless classics. And then with Steven, the majority of our set is the GNR material, all the songs that you expect to hear, like Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, Mr. Brownstone, Rocket Queen, all the old school classics. And then we do mix in, a couple original songs. There was some material that Steven released probably about, 5 years ago. And then some other material that we had recorded before that went out with his book. I don't know if you guys ever read his autobiography, My Appetite for Destruction.
I saw you had a song on that, yeah.
Yeah, he has his book that he put out. And that was back in 2011, I want to say the book came out. But it was a New York Times bestseller. And when we when we went in to record the song Alive for the release of the book, we struck a deal with HarperCollins where they had an exclusive. And if you bought the book, you got a free download. So we were out, there you go. We were promoting that single a lot right when his book came out. So you'll hear some of that material. You'll hear all the classic GNR stuff. So it's just a really cool night of music. And I'm really looking forward to the Choctaw show because I've been now here in Dallas for 5 years. And the Choctaw Casino is probably the closest that we've come to playing Dallas. And I don't know how long. It's been a while. So at least, we'll be out here playing somewhat close to Dallas. And then the next day we fly to Utah. We have a show in Salt Lake. And that's kind of our schedule. We go out and do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday. Then everybody's usually home like Monday through Wednesday, Monday through Thursday.
Very nice, very nice. So that kicks off. You said March 25th, right? Choctaw.
March 25th at the Choctaw. Yeah. So Dallas folks, if you're in town, it's a short drive to Choctaw. So come on up and hang out for a great night of music. It's going to be a blast.
That's awesome. You had mentioned obviously the Alive track that accompanied his book, and then of course your new single, What's on Your Mind. Do you have any other solo stuff in the works? I know you mentioned you had some time off there for touring. Are you working on writing more?
Actually, I wrote quite a bit during the whole lockdown period, as I'm sure a ton of people did.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, took the opportunity to make the best out of a bad situation as much as I could. So I spent a lot of time in the studio, and I actually recorded a number of tracks that I plan on releasing this year. So there's going to be more new music. Really, I wanted to kind of start the release of the new material with that cover song, just because, it's such a great tune and people can identify with it, they hear it and it brings back their own memories of when that song came out and how they relate to it. So I just thought it was a good way to open the door. And I'll be releasing a number of other singles throughout the course of the year that are kind of under the same umbrella sonically, but it's all my own original material. So, yeah.
Very cool. So I have to ask, I understand you're obsessed with Kiss.
I am, dude. See what I got back here?
Yeah. Got the Kiss Army patches.
Well, so we played the Kiss Cruise, I think it was 2019. It was right before the whole lockdown situation. So It was like end of October, beginning of November. And basically, the Kiss Cruise, you go out for a week and you're in the Caribbean. And it was us, Kiss, obviously, Warrant, and The Darkness. And there were some other bands as well. But it was such a cool experience, man. And I was a huge Kiss fan as a kid. That's what got me into music.
Yeah.
So to be able to be on the boat, dude, and do that whole week-long experience was beyond words. It was amazing.
That's awesome. So what was your first Kiss album that you bought? You don't have to age yourself, but...
Okay, the first Kiss album that I had, here's what's crazy. So I did have Kiss Rock and Roll Over, right, on vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a Kiss Destroyer 8-track floating around somewhere. And then I'm not really sure what came after that, to be honest. But I was obsessed. I had as a kid, I had, the records and I had the magazines, I had the dolls, I had the Colorform stickers, I had the comic books. Dude, it was everything Kiss. Everything. Yeah. And what's super crazy about the whole situation with, doing the Kiss Cruise was the very first night of the cruise, we were headlining the outdoor stage. And, it's the first night, you just left port, everybody's just ready to go. Yeah. So I remember we show up to the stage and Warrant had just finished their set. And I've known those guys for years and they're super, super great dudes. Actually, Eric Turner, one of the guitar players from Warrant, lives here in Dallas. So I was talking to those guys and hey, it's a great crowd, you're gonna have a blast. And I'm like, cool, I'm really amped, I'm excited. So we get out on the deck and it's this big outdoor stage and we kick into the first song, man, and we're just going, just blazing through it. And about halfway through the song, I turn around and Paul Stanley is standing next to my amp, right? And I'm like, no way.
A little starstruck, huh?
Yeah, right? And I'm like, this is unbelievable. So anyways, we launch into the next song and when we're playing, and I turn around and he's still there. Throughout the course of the entire show, I keep turning around to see, and he just sat there, leaned on my amplifier, watching the show, having a good time. And he stayed for the entire set. Afterwards, we got off stage and we hung out, and he had like super cool things to say. He was so like down to earth and so genuine and so cool. I was like, what an incredible way to kick off that cruise, right?
Right.
So yeah, it was amazing. So I am a huge Kiss fan.
That's awesome. So
Amazing.
you mentioned the rock and roll Kiss album. What was one of the first CDs or albums you ever owned? Was it Appetite?
And, Appetite was probably close to one of the first ones I owned, but oddly enough, I don't know why I remember this so vividly, but it was David Lee Roth's Skyscraper album. That was the very first one. And it's a great album, man. Steve Vai
I love Steve Vai on that.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah.
What isn't he unbelievable in, though?
What's that?
I said, what is he not unbelievable in, though?
Yeah.
Dropped another album last week, I think.
Always.
Debuted at #1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. He's still putting out phenomenal stuff.
So what do you listen to today, Michael? I mean, I'm not going to lie. I sit here and I still listen to the Faster Pussycats and the Guns N' Roses, the Vince Neils of the world. But what are you listening to?
I listen to all that stuff still. It's funny. After that Kiss cruise, I kind of got really heavily into the Darkness. I never listened to a lot of their stuff, and I remember watching their show, and I just thought they were so brilliant. Justin Hawkins, he's such an incredible frontman, and he's got this incredible vocal range. What was really cool was we ended up hanging out with those guys quite a bit on the cruise, and Justin came up and actually played a song with us one of the nights. So from watching their set and hearing their stuff, I was just kind of taken back by it all. So when I got home, I really kind of got into their albums and their catalog. But dude, I listen to so much different stuff. There's no bounds, everything from, I think there's been some great stuff that like Billie Eilish, Post Malone, to the Ozzy Osbourne, Post Malone.
That collaboration off his last album. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing. The producer, he did such a great job with that material. I really kind of pull from all different areas. I love listening to everything. There's not one thing that's off limits. And what's kind of weird is I was thinking about this earlier today. I don't know how it was when you guys were growing up, but I felt like there was like really clear lines in music as far as you listen to this and you didn't really kind of stray outside of those lines. It was kind of taboo in a way, right? There were different crowds that had different styles and you kind of listened to a certain particular type of music. At least when I was a kid, I felt like there was more there's more division as far as like the different music lanes. And now
you didn't have as much access.
Yeah, there were a lot fewer lanes as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And now I feel
definitely had your own clicks.
Yeah, it's kind of blurred. Those lines are definitely blurred. We saw a lot of that with like country and pop music, right? I mean, those lines got really kind of blurred. We saw a lot of crossover there. But I just feel across the board, it's kind of like anything goes. It's the Wild West when it comes to music, which is cool because I really like, experimenting in different lanes and I can't just do the same thing over and over and over and over again,
Yeah.
So while I still do listen to a lot of rock music, you ever heard of Backyard Babies? You ever listen to those guys? They're one of my favorites, dude. It's so raw. It's so primal. It's so high energy. Like, I love their stuff. To like, really kind of traditional bands like Aerosmith or like the Cult's one of my favorites. There's so much good music out there, but it's really cool and kind of encouraging just to see where things are at now because I feel like there's so much you can do and it's not as, oh, well, I'm a rock guy, so I have to do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Well, that kind of brings around the question, what was it like collaborating with Snoop Dogg?
Oh, dude, that was amazing. Right. So I've been very fortunate to have like a number of really cool and like unique experiences working with a lot of different types of artists, and that one in particular was really awesome. So I'll try to like kind of tie in the Snoop Dogg thing and how that came about. I was out with Steven Adler on tour, and we had an opening act, and they were actually based here in Dallas. Anyways, long story short, they put out a record, and they got some traction with it. They ended up going out with like Black Label Society, Volbeat, and a number of others. We were in Canada playing a show. I think it was Vancouver. Yeah, it was Vancouver. And I was walking down the street after sound check, and I see Volbeat with Anchored, and I'm like, Anchored? God, that sounded like our old opening act from like 2 years ago. I wonder if it's the same band. So I had their number in my cell phone, and I called up one of the guys, and I said, hey, are you in Vancouver? And he's like, yeah, we're playing here tonight with Volbeat. And I'm like, man, we're right down the street. And it was just like this crazy coincidence. So anyways, they went on earlier in the night, and we had our headline set at this other venue. So they came to the show. We kind of caught up. I got home from that show, and a week later they called me and said, hey, we heard the stuff that you wrote for Steven Adler. We're getting ready to do our second record. Would you be interested in helping us write this record? We'd like to fly you to Dallas and do a writing session. So I ended up showing up here to Dallas. I was still living in LA at the time. And we were I flew into Dallas, but we were staying at this ranch out in Tyler. I mean, we were kind of way removed from everything, which was amazing because there was no cell phone service. There was no distractions. Yeah. So I get out to this ranch, and we all kind of get together and, talking about what the plan is while I'm there. And, we had, I think, 10 days. And they said, well, listen, if there's one thing we need to accomplish before you leave is we're doing a collaboration song, and that's what we're going to work on first. So I was like, okay, well, who's the collaboration with? And they said, well, so we have this video director, and, he works with a bunch of other artists, and he suggested this idea. We thought it was good, so we reached out to him, and he wants to do it. And I said, okay, well, who's the artist? And they said Snoop Dogg. And I was just like, what? That's insane. So
D-O-double-G.
Right.
I was so floored, but I was so excited because I'm just like, oh, man, okay, this is super cool. So
yeah,
I don't know, maybe it was the conversation or knowing that he was going to be a part of it, but like I was instantly inspired. So there on this property, there was like the main house, then there was like a guest house that was converted into a recording studio. And so I kind of went into the studio, and I just started messing around with some different riffs. And I sat there and I sat there and I sat there. And I don't know if you guys have heard the track or watched the video, but it starts with this kind of almost like it's a wah pedal, and I'm using the toggles, the pickup selector on my Les Paul. So it's acting as a kill switch. So it's got this really cool, almost kind of like Tom Morello style to the riff. Okay. And anyways, I end up writing the riff. I end up kind of putting the whole song together and just kind of recording it in the studio. And about, 4 hours later, I brought it to the guys and I said, hey, what do you think about this? So literally, we went back into the studio, and the drummer did his thing, and we worked out some parts. The other guitar player did his stuff, and we had that song written by the end of the first day. It was insane. And so, like the next day, I think we did the scratch vocals, and then sent the tracks back to LA.
So was Snoop in the studio with you, or did you send the tracks to him and then he?
Not for the demo. This was just the demo work.
Oh, okay.
We ended up recording the album in LA at NRG Studios with James Baumgartner, who produced the record, who's done like Linkin Park, Papa Roach, No Doubt. I mean, he's done everybody. Yep. Yeah, so for the demos, we sent them back, and then within like 2 days, Snoop sent his tracks back. So literally that whole song was knocked out super quick, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess we have like another 8 days to write the rest of the record. So we wrote a bunch of tracks that we shipped back to LA, and so when we got to LA, we had all this material. We did a bunch of pre-production, and it was amazing. So we finished up the song. Snoop comes in to do his thing, and then they decided they wanted to do a music video for that single. So Snoop signed on to do the video. And dude, I'll tell you what, he is one of the coolest, most, like the person you see on TV is like the person in real life.
That's him. Yeah.
He's so laid back, so cool, so nice, so like soft spoken and like, I mean, really genuine. And, you know, we spent time with everybody just kind of talking and hanging out. And I thought it was really cool. And just the whole experience of doing that video, like it was a video that I feel was like really done right. You know, from the crew to like all the extras we had and the way the whole thing was set up, like when it all came together, I was like, wow, like it fits the song fits the video. It's so cohesive. Like I could have never expected all that when we first started doing this little riff out in the middle of Tyler, Texas, right?
Awesome.
It goes from out on a ranch,
yeah,
playing with your guitar, coming up with the riff, to 6 months later, I'm on a backlot shooting the video with Snoop. So crazy, right?
That's awesome.
so cool.
But that whole record, that whole experience, I mean, it was so awesome because we spent 3 months at NRG Studios. And so NRG has 3 main rooms, A, B, and C. We were in room B. In room A was Linkin Park, and in room C was Gavin Rossdale from Bush. So, like, dude, like the neighbors in the studio were unreal. So, you know, that was our job for 3 months, was to show up and record that record. And I was there for every day from start to finish. As a matter of fact, the band flew home after the last of the main vocals were done. And then I spent another week in the studio with Jay doing background vocals and harmonies just by myself.
Wow.
So,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was an amazing experience.
So I have to ask, what started your love with the Gibson Les Paul?
Oh, dude, what's there not to love about a Gibson Les Paul? Oh my God.
So
It's
when
heavy. It's really, really heavy.
see, Mikey's a Paul Reed Smith guy, so I was curious to see where this went.
He's
PRSs are heavy
actually been
also.
branching out a little bit recently, so I don't want to
Okay.
attach Paul Reed Smith to Mike anymore. 'Cause
Everything
he's
he's
branching out
touched,
a little
yeah.
bit.
I'm not
He's a
exclusive.
guitar guy, just in general.
I'm not exclusive, but yeah.
So Michael, you started playing at 12, right?
Yeah, I was like 12 years old, and it wasn't a Les Paul back then. But listen, Paul Reed Smith, love those guitars. You know, they have a certain type of feel, which is great. They're super light, which is awesome because it saves your shoulder a lot of pain.
They're not all, but they're not all light. I can tell you that.
Well, that's true.
Some
That's
of
true.
them are.
And the woodwork is so beautiful, and they got great tone. You know, I used a combination of them on that record at NRG, and the people at Paul Reed Smith were so good to us. As a matter of fact, in that video with Snoop Dogg, I'm actually playing a PRS.
All right.
But you know, the Les Paul, I've always just gravitated back to. And when I was a kid, I think I started with the Fender Strat, which I think is kind of traditional, right? For kids kind of learning, playing guitar. It's affordable, sounds great, it's versatile. So I started with the Strat, and then, you know, you start with the Strat, and then you see these bands on TV, right? So you're influenced by what you see. And I remember I jumped from the Strat to an Ibanez because I had to have the whammy bar and the tremolo system and all the cool bells and whistles. And, you know, again, Ibanez, they put out a great product too. I mean, you know, I have nothing bad to say about any of those companies. Those are all great guitars. And it was funny because when I got to LA, I worked with a lot of different bands. You know, I was trying to work my way up in the food chain in Los Angeles. And there was one band in particular that kind of had a big influence on me. And they were so much more kind of rooted into the classic rock kind of stuff, like, you know, Aerosmith, the Stones, that kind of thing. And this one guitar player had a collection of super awesome guitars, Les Pauls, Telecasters, Dobros, Res Electrics, all these great guitars. That kind of started my love affair with that more kind of classic, traditional kind of Les Paul thing. So, John Zito, if you're watching or if you're listening to this, thank you for that.
I also cut my teeth with Les Paul, so I love Les Pauls. I have several myself. They're great guitars.
Yeah, they're amazing, and so I kind of gravitated towards the Les Paul thing, and I have kind of strayed away at different points in my career, working with different guitar companies. I was with Yamaha for like a number of years. I'm still with them for like acoustic guitars because I think they make a great product. As a matter of fact, I used their electric AES 820 model. Sammy Hagar plays that one still quite a bit. But they stopped making that particular guitar. It kind of looked like Les Paul, but it was half the weight, but it sounded monstrous. And they used different pickups in a couple of different models. And I want to say they had Duncans in there, Seymour Duncans. So the thing screamed, and I loved that. But then they kind of stopped making them. So fell back in love with the Les Pauls, and I've kind of been there ever since. You know, I have a whole different collection of Les Pauls, ones that I take out on the road with me and ones that stay in the studio now. So.
Do you have a favorite pickups that you use?
You know,
like your
everything in my Les
go-to?
Pauls everything in my Les Pauls are stock. So it's all the Gibson pickups in my Les Pauls. And usually, like, I kind of gravitate towards the zebra stripe pickups, you know?
Yeah.
But I would say outside of keeping that Gibson sound Gibson, I really love the Duncans, man. Like the Seymour Duncans, they make some great stuff. I was actually here in Texas at the guitar show a couple of years back, and Seymour was actually at the show, and I got a chance to like talk to him for a bit, and he's like a super cool guy. And I was just expressing to him how impressed I was with his product and how the consistency has been so great over the years, man. I mean, so great.
Yep. I just dropped 59 in a custom in this guitar I just bought, and I love the combination. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's excellent.
So I have to ask, just because I've been reading a couple of different books. One of them is Nothing But a Good Time, which is all about the 80s LA scene. And then now I'm reading Stephen Piercy's bio. So
yeah,
what was it? At age 17, you left North Carolina and moved to LA?
At age 17, well, I was 17 and a half, turning 18. I left actually the Bay Area, San Francisco.
Okay.
Down to LA. Yeah.
And what was that like? Did you have connections? Did you have family?
No, I didn't know anybody down in LA, to be honest with you. So it was kind of like starting completely new. And I just knew that I had to be down in LA if I was going to, you know, cut my teeth in the music industry. So when I got down here, though, a lot of all that 80s fun time rock and roll stuff was already over. I missed all that. You know what I mean? Like that's what the stuff that I watched on Headbangers Ball when I was a kid.
Yep.
You know, it always throws me for a loop because, you know, I remember when like the video for Sweet Child of Mine came out with Guns N' Roses. And I was like 13 or 14. And I remember being with my buddies watching Headbangers Ball every weekend, you know, sneaking beers out of the parents' fridge and, you know, watching this stuff. And then all these years later, I get the opportunity to work with, you know, some of the same folks that I grew up listening to. So, you know, it's a blessing. It's very, very cool, but kind of surreal at the same time, right?
So what was the scene like when you did get there? Because you mentioned a lot of those bands had moved out, and those were kind of the guitar bands of that era. What was it like when you did get there?
It was kind of weird. So when I got down to LA, a lot of the strip was shutting down. I think Guitarist was maybe about 6 months from closing. I was actually at the very last show ever for Guitarist. And it was that time period where, you know, the Red Hot Chili Peppers had released their record and they were huge. Alice in Chains were really breaking big. STP. And then what's really crazy was after the wave of those Seattle bands, then all the OC bands really kind of came into play. So you had like, you know, No Doubt became huge in Southern California. And it's weird. So I feel like I was around, not for the 80s part of the music history, but I was living in Long Beach like 91 through 94. And that's when No Doubt was just kind of playing still the local clubs and coming up. So I remember seeing advertisements for these bands like Sublime and No
I was
Doubt.
going to say
Yeah,
Sublime.
I was thinking them too. Yeah.
I was about to say.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, these guys are just exploding. And that wasn't really the kind of music that I was into as far as playing or writing. So not that I didn't appreciate the music or the style of what they were doing, it just really wasn't what I was geared towards because I grew up on a different style of music, a different genre of music. So it was cool to be there for that, but it was also a little alienating because I'm like, all right, well, is rock and roll going to come around again? Like rock and roll the way I know it.
Right.
But music works in cycles, right? So after that was like really all the kind of, I guess, maybe new metal. So, you had like, it was a weird period too, like Moby kind of was breaking big, and then you had Limp Bizkit and a number of other bands in like that genre, right?
Yeah.
So I was working with a band called Engines of Aggression at that time. And it was definitely a heavier band, not a lot of guitar solos, more kind of drop tune stuff. But what I liked about the band was that even though there was this really heavy element to it, there was still this kind of organic feel. It was like a mixture of like Nine Inch Nails meets Jane's Addiction, if that makes any sense. And the band had put out a record on Priority Records, and we were working with a guy named Steve Duda who had engineered some of the Rob Zombie stuff and some of the Nine Inch Nails, I think the Fragile album. So, we were in good company working on this stuff. But even that was kind of a different style. It was trying to like figure out, okay, well, how do I fit into this scene and what am I going to do here kind of moving forward? So, I ended up doing that band, and we ended up touring, and actually my very first tour in Japan was with Engines of Aggression. And what's really crazy was about like 2 weeks before I left for Japan with Engines of Aggression, I got the gig with Beautiful Creatures. I don't know if you're familiar with that band. So I ended up going to Japan knowing that this was going to be my last hurrah for Engines of Aggression. And then when I got back to the States, it was like full bore with
Beautiful Creatures. They were on Warner Brothers. So were you still out in LA at that point when you got back from Japan, working with them and Bo Hill?
Yeah. I was still in LA, and I remained in LA up until like end of 2016. I got back from that tour, and I started working with a number of different bands, one of them being Beautiful Creatures. And then we were doing the second record, and we had the opportunity to go into the recording studio with Bo Hill, who had done all the Rat stuff, like you were talking about Piercy a little earlier.
Yeah.
Winger, all the Warrant hits. I mean, Bo Hill had an amazing track record. And I gotta say, like, I really enjoyed my time with Bo. Like, we were totally on the same page when it came to like being in the studio. I would bring in ideas and riffs and songs and kind of deconstruct them and put stuff back together. And I really spent, a good chunk of time with him writing tunes for the second Beautiful Creatures record. So at that time, the band was no longer on Warner Brothers, and we were shopping a new deal. And Paul Gargano, who was the editor of Metal Edge magazine, he was our manager at the time. So he was shopping us around different labels. And, that process can take a while. So to kind of like fill the gap in between signing that second deal and, just trying to stay afloat, the singer from Beautiful Creatures, his name is Joe Lestay, he used to have a band called Bang Tango. So we ended up, funny story. So we were trying to like put together something for fun to earn some cash in between records, right? So we decided, hey, let's get a few friends together and just go do like a jam thing. We'll do some AC/DC, some Aerosmith, and just do some shows and bridge the gap. So it was me and Joe and two of the guys from the London Choir Boys. You ever listen to their stuff?
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure
very classic rock from the UK.
Yeah.
And we were hanging out with those guys like every day back in LA. So it was Nigel, the bass player, and then Guy Griffin, the guitar player. So the four of us put together this jam band, booked a show, booked a series of shows, and then like 2 weeks before, we got a call from the guys, Nigel and Griffin, and they said, "Man, super sorry, we just got offered this tour. We're heading out with the band." And so Joe and I are like, "What are we gonna do?"
Yeah.
So we had to scramble, find some other guys. We did the show. We did a couple Bang Tango songs, and I don't know what happened, but we finished that show, and then the next day, our booking agent was like, "Dude, the phone is blowing up with offers for Bang Tango." And that really wasn't our intention, but all of a sudden, this door was open. So he and I put together a band, and we went out and just kind of revived the whole Bang Tango thing, which was, again, that was never our intention, but oddly enough, like Psycho Cafe and Dancing on Coals, I mean, those are two of my favorite records. Like, it was just kind of dumb luck, you know? Like, I loved those records. And so we ended up going out on tour, and I ended up doing the Bang Tango thing for a number of years.
That's awesome, because I know they came out kind of toward that tail end of that whole 80s craze. So it's good to see that they got some of the respect they deserve, because those two albums are outstanding. So
they really are. And, you know, the musicians in that band were phenomenal. The bass player, Kyle, he's just unbelievable. I mean, really talented band, super nice guys. You know, I had the opportunity to meet the original guys throughout the course of the years. So, yeah, I mean, one of my favorite records. Another band from that genre that I ended up playing and touring with. But
crap,
you know,
I got one of their records too. I should have put it on the wall back there.
Yeah. And so oddly enough, we ended up doing a weekend in Tennessee with Faster Pussycat. So it was Faster Pussycat and Bang Tango. And we were traveling together. You know, we flew from LA out there together, traveled together, and then flew back. And I had known Tammy way before we even did that. So when I first got to LA, the big scene, like the 80s stuff, was kind of over, right? As I was mentioning, there used to be these incredible after parties in these big warehouses, and that came to a close too. And I don't know why, but I took it upon myself to create like my own after party. So like, dude, 4 or 5 nights a week, my house. Because
you like to party.
It was nuts. It was nuts. And so that's actually the first time I met Tammy, was he showed up to one of my parties. So we had known each other for probably 10 years before we ever started working together. But it was that weekend with Bang Tango that, you know, we were hanging out with all the guys and had a great time, and we got back to LA. And then Brent Muscat, the guitar player for Faster Pussycat, his wife was having a baby. They had a summer tour, and he couldn't commit to doing it. He had to be at home. And so the guys called me and said, "Hey, you know, do you have any plans for the summer right now?" At that time, you know, I had a couple of months open. I was working on some other things, but it just kind of aligned with my schedule. So that's how I started working with Faster, you know, and I was in that band for 7 or 8 years. I actually did a live record with them in Australia. Yeah. So, you know, that was amazing.
Well, I appreciate what you've done is you filled the gap, because I was trying to figure out how you got from Engines of Aggression, Beautiful Creatures, well, you had Fastback there for a bit, and then how you got from there to Faster Pussycat and Adler. And it's crazy to think that the missing peg there was Bang Tango.
So, well, we haven't even talked about Blackheart Saints, right?
No, we have not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, dude, there's just all these weird little connections. And, you know, there's other artists as well, you know, like for Beautiful Creatures. I mentioned that I got that gig 2 weeks before I left for Japan.
Right.
But I was out on tour with a band called Tough.
Yep.
And Stevie Rochelle, who runs Metal Sludge, has been a good friend of mine for, I mean, I don't know how long now. And that's a whole other crazy story, but I ended up going out with him to do shows with them. We were playing in LA, and at that show, the singer from Beautiful Creatures and a couple of the other guys happened to see me play with Tough. And so they came up to me after the show and said, hey, would you be interested in coming down and auditioning for Beautiful Creatures? We think you'd be a good fit. So it's weird, these little degrees of separation, right?
That's crazy. I saw Tough a few years ago back at Bomb Factory with Eddie Trunk on one of the 80s Christmas shows. So
yeah, I was there.
Were you? Yeah, that was a fun night.
Yeah, that was great.
All right, Mikey, you're going to have to pull me out. I'm going to sit here and talk 80s metal and rock.
Well, you know what? I wanted to give you that moment because I know that this is like
We talked about this.
Little bit of nerding out there.
I was like, Brad's gonna go just bonkers on this one because Michael's got such the resume, man.
Right?
It's unbelievable.
I could talk for hours about all sorts of crazy 80s stories, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. I wanted to, all this stuff too is what I found when doing, some research and stuff. And you sent me some links and stuff is you got a really intuitive website too that people should check out. It's michaelthomas19.com. So people really should check that out because you've done so much. There's no way everybody can remember it all. So definitely go there, check it out. It's a great website. You can subscribe. He's got everything. He's got pictures and a tour. So just like you were saying, that upcoming show, it's right here on the website. So just go there, check it out, keep up with him for sure. It's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome.
So it sounds like, Mikey, do we want to jump into some of these questions we're getting from?
I was going to say we had quite a few questions on the Facebook live stream.
Yeah.
Crystal wants to know if you can pick her up. That's one.
That was during the pickups. That was during the pickups conversation about pickups in your guitar, and she spun it a different way.
Boy, she's jumping ahead with the clothing line as well. I was going to ask about that and see if you still had. We're still doing things with the Sick Truth clothing.
So yeah, Sick Truth is a clothing line that a buddy of mine has in Europe, and he's done some great stuff, man. I was fortunate to get on his roster and be able to represent some of his wares over the course of the years. He's worked really heavily with like the guys in Alice Cooper's band and a number of others. So yeah, I can't say enough good about the stuff that he produces and just all the cool T-shirts and swag that he puts together. It's amazing. And then I dabbled in my own thing for a number of years. I had my Johnny Ringo line, which was different tees and vintage designs and cool stuff that I was doing. It's funny because I do dabble in projects outside of music, and a lot of that revolves around art. This is going to sound totally weird, but there was a period of time where I was doing a lot of design work in between tours, just to again fill the spaces in between shows. And I ended up doing a lot of clothing design for different companies. I ended up doing a campaign for Urban Outfitters. And for 2 years in a row, I had some best-selling pieces for that. Which is super weird when you think about that, right? It's like I'd be at shows on tour, and I'd be doing meet and greets afterwards. And these kids would be walking up with one of the shirts that I designed for Urban Outfitters. And I'm like, dude, this is so weird. And I'm like, hey, that's my shirt. And they're like, oh, you got this too? And I'm like, no, I designed that.
No, I made that.
So literally, I would get into debates back and forth with some people. And I'd be like, okay, hold on. And I'd go up on the bus, I'd get my laptop, and break out my Photoshop files, and I'd be like, does this look familiar?
They didn't believe you. That's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, so let's look at some of these questions, Mikey, while we hose off Crystal. So
she said she's going to see you in Oklahoma.
Right?
Awesome. I'll see you there.
Love you, Crystal. All right. John Tuttle mentioned Brand New Machine obviously had some great tracks. Why do you think they didn't make it or break it bigger than they did?
Man, I'll tell you what, I love that record. That record is so near and dear to my heart. And, my bandmates from Brand New Machine are here in Dallas. I think it was a great record. We kind of fell victim to, unfortunately, like bad timing. So, at the time, we were working with a record label that was really new, and they were very good about like support as far as the recording, as far as getting us out to go do shows. But they were going through, I guess, growing pains, and I think there were a lot of holes in the business process as far as marketing and really brand awareness. So the record came out, and here's the crazy thing: when that record came out, I want to say that was 2013. Yeah, 13 or 14, and we had shelf space in Best Buy. Like, how many bands have shelf space in a brick and mortar store, right? Yeah. It's like unheard of. If you're like, I don't know, if you're a heavyweight artist, Justin Bieber, so on, okay, you'll get shelf space. So they did a phenomenal job with that. Unfortunately, there was business issues. The record came out. We ended up doing, some smaller tours, and then actually the label dissolved, and so we were left without a record label in the home.
Oh, wow!
And we had this brand new record that I felt had some really, really strong tracks. We actually recorded that record in LA with a producer named Ryan Green, who had done work with like NoFX, Megadeth, a bunch of great bands. So sonically, I thought that album was spectacular. I thought there was like a lot of really good cuts on that. And the thing about Brand New Machine is it kind of reminded me a little bit of a combination of some of the stuff I'd done in the past. Like there's a kind of a hint of kind of Beautiful Creatures to it. There's a little GNR. There's a little Velvet Revolver. It was bluesy. It was rock. There was some swagger to it, but it still had kind of a modern edge to some of the tunes. So I love that record, and if you haven't heard it, pick it up. It's called "The Devil Made Me Do It," and honestly, I'm really proud of that record. Really proud of that record. And unfortunately, just fell victim to circumstance, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
awesome. I'm definitely gonna be checking that out tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same.
So
I've got all kind. I've been listening to your stuff all week. Just kind of prepping for this, and it's all good. All of it's really good. So,
thank you.
Awesome.
I only scratched the surface. I mean, there's so much. I didn't realize how much. I mean, you and I have talked before, but it's crazy how much you've done. It's
thanks,
I'm
man. Thanks. Yeah.
highly impressed.
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to hang out and talk in the past, which is awesome because again, it's a very small circle of folks, right? So I'm glad that we get to do this show now. But I'm really interested to get your guys' feedback on some of the material because there's a bunch of it out there, and it's all kind of a little different. Not everything sounds the same. There's definitely some variety there. So it'll be cool to see what you guys think.
It's like all across the board. It's it's all good too. It's not like some of it's good and some of it's not, or depending on the genre, or it's good music's good music. So you can't argue with that.
I was gonna say, do you have a playlist on Spotify, Michael, with all your different stuff in it?
I don't yet. It's something that I'm working on, and I've had people ask me about the whole Spotify situation with the new single that I just put out. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I just have it available on my YouTube channel right now because I'm talking to a few folks about releasing some new material. And if so, that tune will get lumped in with the deal for that. So it's right now just the whole YouTube situation. But once all this stuff is kind of worked out, I'm hoping to have that Spotify situation, around the corner.
I noticed on your website that there was like a little chat thing that popped up. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know that I've ever seen that on a website. That's like direct to you and people can ask you questions and that kind of thing?
Yeah, everything through that website comes to me. So if there are questions or feedback or whatever it is, it comes directly to me. Yeah, I'm trying to make myself as accessible as possible, because I mean, these days too, with music, it's so, DIY, right? And I think it's so hands-on, and honestly, I'd rather have it that way, because I really feel like the more control you have over your career, honestly, the better off you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we want to help direct people to whatever channels are best for you. And like I said, I think the website's great. So I think people go there, and then you have the questions. And I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen that accessible. So I mean, that's fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
You might be hearing from Crystal soon.
I'll be seeing her in Oklahoma.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, you will.
Careful, maybe get extra security on that show.
Oh, she's a sweetheart.
She's great.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, we love her. She's great.
Lainey here, I hope I pronounced her name right. Says, "What's your favorite song you've ever written and your favorite to play live?" So that's, I guess, 2 questions.
Oh man, my favorite song I've ever written. Well, I can tell you one of them is the next track that I'm going to release. So make sure you come to the website, stay in touch with me, and just keep your eyes peeled for announcements either through my Instagram or Facebook. I'm really excited about this new material that I finished and I'm going to be releasing this year. So definitely that material is some of my favorite. With the previous bands, I mean, God, there's some great stuff on the Branding Machine record. The Anchored record, the one with the Snoop Dogg track. Man, that is just such an awesome record. And you can, if you have Alexa, like if you have the streaming service, you can find that. Just say, Alexa, play Anchored Beneath the Surface.
I'm glad I don't have you live right now, because my Alexas would be going crazy.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
Glad I have
oh god,
headphones
he's
on.
about to start listening.
Everybody's Alexa's going off all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Genius.
And
Smart. That was a smart play to say that.
Yeah. Just say it real loud, and it'll just play across everybody's every
Right.
time they listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's genius.
So there are some great songs on that Anchored record, and again, the title of that record is called Beneath the Surface. So check that out. And then to play live, I've had such an awesome opportunity to work with so many different artists, right? So, I mean, dude, the GNR material that we do with Steven, it's hard for me to pick a favorite song, because they're all so good. I mean, there's so many great cuts. And you're going to hear, obviously, Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, Paradise City. I mean, I love playing all that stuff. One of my favorite tracks, which maybe you kind of consider this like a B-side GNR tune, is Anything Goes. Dude, that
awesome
tune is so fun to play.
That is a great song.
Yeah, I don't know if that's be considered a B-side. It's so good.
Just another killer, That thing just slays.
Well, it's got to be unbelievable playing it with him too, because
to play live.
Yeah, and he's nailing it. I'm sure. So it's got to be amazing.
It's a blast, and what's really great for the people who come to the show is you see Steven up there. He's always got a huge smile on his face behind the kit, having a great time, and the band is a super talented group. This past year we've had Todd Kearns from Slash's band playing bass with us. Our singer, Ari Kinnan from Argentina, dude, he sounds exactly like the Appetite record. It's uncanny. It's crazy how good he sounds. He does such a spot-on performance. So, people come to the show, and I think at first they're not sure what to expect. And then, I think they once they take it all in, they just become, repeat offenders. They come to the next show and the next show and the next show, which is awesome. Because everybody always has a blast.
Very
That's
cool.
the way to do it.
Well, March 25th in Choctaw. Go see Steven Adler, his Appetite, and Vince Neil. So that ought to be a fun night for sure.
Yeah.
All right. And anything else we want to promote while we got you, Michael? I know we've been kind of running the website across the bottom scroll there. Michael Thomas
I appreciate
19.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, find me on social media as far as Instagram. It's Michael Thomas. Facebook, Michael Thomas 19, similar to the website, michaelthomas19.com. YouTube channel, you can find me there as well, Michael Thomas 19. And I would say just, keep in touch as far as, scan out social media, because again, I will be releasing a bunch of new material here throughout the course of the year. Tour dates are always popping up. So, we have the Choctaw Show, as you mentioned, on the 25th. The next night we are in Salt Lake City, Utah. And so, I always update my tour page. So it's easy to see where I'm going to be next. And if it's close to you, come out to a show and say hello and have a good time.
Absolutely. We looked at it earlier. I think you've got a subscription link or something on the website where they can get notices on new tracks, dates, and all that. So I'll be doing that myself here shortly.
Awesome.
All right. Mikey, Amy, Peoples, anything?
Oh man, there's so much to unpack there. So.
Yeah,
I might have to watch this show myself.
I'm about to go grab some records from behind me and keep talking to him if we don't wrap this up.
So you guys promise me we'll do this again in the near future, and we'll continue the stories and dive deeper into the stories.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're gonna have to
Well,
do
maybe
like a
we can-
two-parter, three-parter, or something.
Well, by that time, maybe we can all hang out and have stories to tell about all of us.
There you go.
That's
In
a
public.
Fantastic.
I love
Michael.
how many book recommendations there were tonight. Every
like
time y'all
that?
mentioned a book, I was over
You
here
write it
Googling
down?
it so that I could,
You got to check out that
I'm a-
Nothing But a Good Time. That is one of the best reads I've had in a
that
while.
was that one and My Appetite for Destruction. I definitely
Yeah.
put those on the list to be read.
I've got to go track down that one for Stephen Adler. Yep. All right, guys. Everybody that tuned in tonight, everybody that asked questions, participated. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Michael. Thank you so much for carving out some time to talk with us.
Thank you very much.
Can't thank
Thank you
enough.
guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Everybody that
Thank
tuned
you.
in, thank you so much. Tuning out for tonight. We will be back in a couple of weeks with another interview, so keep an eye out for that. Have a great evening, everybody. This is Brad.
I'm Amy.
Mikey B.
This is Peoples.
Stay tuned, folks.
Stay local.
All right. Good night.